Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, we will be talking about the Farmers Almanac Winter Forecast 2025-2026. As you saw there briefly, that was my cat. She is now 13 years of age. She is very sweet, so I just wanted to address that. We'll be going over the Farmers Almanac Winter Forecast and also the old Farmers Almanac Winter Forecast. Those are two different agencies with two different forecasts. So I want to start off by looking at just the Farmers Almanac Winter Forecast, and then I will show you the old Farmers Almanac Winter Forecast. So notice that the Farmers Almanac has quite a cold bias across a good portion of, if not all, the United States. And starting across the northwest, they have chilly and wet across the northwestern regions of the United States, so that would probably also extend into southwestern Canada, British Columbia, and Alberta. Chilly and wet. Notice that as you get towards the southwest, they have average temperatures and wet for this winter, which I would say is a pretty decent bet. I don't know how much of that is going to be a reality, especially with the wet. The average temperatures, I could see that happening. In my forecast, I'm leaning towards above average temperatures. I will be showing you that in just a little bit, though. Notice that across the Upper Plains and Midwest, the massive region there of very cold and snowy. And I would say that I agree with that region. Across the South, they have cold and wet. The southeast, they have average temperatures and wet. Across the Great Lakes, they have very cold and snowy. So that seems that again, the Midwest there, the Great Lakes, and the Northeast are going to be their main regions of where the worst of winter is going to be. And then you can see, speaking of the Northeast, New England there, cold, snow-filled winter. So overall, a pretty snowy and pretty cold forecast that they have for a good portion of the United States. And again, with the neutral potentially occurring again this year with a brief La Nina episode in the fall, I think that that is very reasonable, and we are looking at a very cold and snowy winter for the most of the United States. So now I want to take a look at the old Farmers Almanac Winter Forecast. So this is a slightly different organization. Apparently, this one is much older, and they claim to be the oldest periodical editorial in the United States, I think dating back to 1792. So yeah, they definitely have a history. And notice that unlike the Farmer's Almanac, the old Farmer's Almanac for the winter forecast has a lot more mild and dry across a good portion of the United States. They aren't really leaning as much towards a cold and snowy winter. Unless you live across the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, you can see there's a few regions there that are cold, dry, cold, snowy. Even potentially the Southeast there, and Florida cold, wet. Everywhere else across the Central Plains, the Southern Plains, the Southwest, the Northwest, they are really saying it's going to be mild, wet, mild, dry, mild, potentially snowy across New Mexico, Arizona, and Texas there. And then do note that across the Northeast, it is also, specifically New England there more, it is also mild and dry. So quite a different forecast from the Farmers Almanac. Farmers Almanac divided the U.S. into several different regions. I think it is a total of 18 regions, and I'm not going to go over each and every single individual one because that would be too much, but I will definitely link in the description box below the link to the Farmer's Almanac, but also the old Farmer's Almanac, so that you guys could go to your region wherever you live, for example the Heartland, and see what precisely they have. You can see less shoveling overall through late January, though late January could bring a winter punch. And they have this for every single region, including the Northeast, Atlantic corridor, all the way across the West, the Southwest, and including large cities. So it's very cool. And again, I think it's an interesting thing to look at, even if the accuracy may be limited. I highly recommend it, and I will have that attached in the description box below. Now I want to show you what I think will be happening in terms of the temperatures for this upcoming winter, and I'll give you my 2 cents on which almanac I think will be more accurate. So notice that across a good portion of the Southwest, I have warmth. So in that sense, I am agreeing with the old Farmer's Almanac. I think it will be pretty warm and pretty dry across these areas. Anywhere in this white is basically, I think the temperatures will be kind of in between. Not necessarily cold, not necessarily mild. So that's more in line with not really either of them. I think the Farmer's Almanac, the first one I showed you, showed more of those mild or just average temperatures, as it said, across the West, which I think is going to be accurate. But notice that across the East and the Midwest and the Great Lakes, I have a lot of cold, which is definitely more of what the Farmer's Almanac shows, not the old Farmer's Almanac. The old Farmer's Almanac thinks a lot of these areas will be mild and dry. I think they will be, at least in terms of temperatures, they will be very, very cold. Now, across the Northeast, you may be wondering, why does the cold just randomly stop there? And the reason for that is I think that there will be a lot of nor'easters, and potentially some of those won't necessarily bring snow just for the coastal areas, but further inland. So with that, I think some of the cold temperatures will be kept at bay by the warm tropical moisture there. But there definitely will be a lot of cold and more specifically a lot of snow across the Northeast, which brings me into my next slide. I want to show you my snow forecast. So this is my snowfall forecast in terms of above or below average. I think that these areas shaded in the brown and orange will be below average snowfall. So again, more in line with what the old Farmers Almanac showed. But they did show that some of these regions here could be snowier. I don't know what the logic behind that is, but I'm sure they have something there. I don't really see that. I think this whole region will be below average. Notice that across Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana, I have these dark blue colors. And I think that is going to be due to a very active Pacific jet stream that is going to be slamming storms into the northwest, and that's going to be bringing a lot of snow, above average snowfall, and in general precipitation. Notice across the central plains and into the southeast, I have above average snowfall and it's light shade because I don't know the extent of how above average that will be, but I do think that there will be a decent chance for a lot of snow there. That's again to do with that cold air that's going to be centered across the Great Lakes. On the underside of that, there will be Alberta clippers. I think they will be bringing in some snow here. So again, more to do with the Farmers Almanac, not the old one. And then I really think there will be even more snow as you get towards the Great Lakes, the Midwest. Again, Alberta clippers, large snowstorms. But I think that the mother lode this year of snow will be the Northeast, especially the coastal areas. I think there will be several large nor'easters, several large systems that bring a lot of snow for the shores here and will result in a lot of snowfall. So in that sense, I am very similar to the Farmers Almanac winter forecast. Now I just kind of want to show you my forecast where I had the highlights, right? And again, this looks pretty similar to the Farmers Almanac winter forecast, the first one, right? It shows many areas like the Northwest being snowy, brutal cold, and snow across the Midwest and upper plains, and then blizzards across the Northeast. Wetter towards the south and east because of all those low pressures are going to be tracking here. Again, the Alberta clippers with those low pressures there, and then a battle zone potentially setting up here across the red, where there could be, a little bit of cold, a little bit of snow, a little bit of rain, and then anywhere in the gray, just kind of in between zone. So yeah, pretty similar to the Farmers Almanac winter forecast. I do believe that my winter forecast aligns with it pretty well. And the old Farmers Almanac is definitely more of a warmer scenario, and we will have to wait and see which one comes true. At this point, I'm obviously leaning towards the Farmers Almanac. That is basically it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya. Bye.